Hello and welcome to the Way Out podcast. Andrew Logan here. Great to be with you as always for another episode 110 today. And I have a fantastic guest with me today. If you're watching live on the live stream or you're watching a replay on YouTube or my Facebook, you will see the incredible Darin Kidd sitting there. And I haven't had a guest on for a little while. I've been running the podcast and I've just been so focused on creating the podcast. I haven't had a guest on. So it's an absolute honor to have you on, Darin. Thanks for being here with us today.
Andrew, thank you. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed. For all of you that are joining, make sure to let us know where you're watching from in the comments, because that excites me. I love helping people, and I know Andrew does as well. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And so we can go back and read those comments. But I know that, Andrew, just what you shared with me, your vision for this podcast and helping other people and, talking about finances and how to treat it like a business. Let me tell you, for all of you that are plugging in, you're definitely with the right person, and you're very blessed to have someone sharing that knowledge with you and just investing in you. And I know you know that, but it's always good to hear it, and be reminded of it every now and then.
Oh, I appreciate that, mate. And we got the green memo, which was interesting. We didn't plan this, but we both got nice green shirts on and looking like we're part of a team. But look, the reason I invited Darin on, and we were sort of connecting over social media recently, and we're having a little bit of a laugh because he was talking about how he'd actually had a little bit of an injury at the gym. And, if you know me, I've got a sports physiotherapy background, and it's always fun just talking about injuries because for me, it's a great way it's not fun when people get injured, but it's a great way for me to connect because I can add a lot of value to people's lives. And we're just sort of having a bit of a joke about, keeping up with the younger people and, keeping up with the young guys at the gym. But the habit of going to the gym and having that discipline and having that structure into our life health-wise, but then also looking at those habits for success in business. So if you don't know Darin's got an incredible background. He's got decades of success, decades of results, decades of experience in the network marketing industry, in the online franchising industry, in business, and now he's moving into, coaching and mentoring people as well. And we were chatting about it before we came on live, and we're chatting about it on social media over the past couple of weeks about how really the disciplines of success and the habits of success, they flow into so many areas of your life. And sometimes they're like, well, that person's so good at everything. It's like, well, it's not that they're good at everything. They just focus on the habits and they have good habits. And if you show me your habits, I can show you your results kind of thing. So Dan, why don't we sort of open up with there? Like, what is it for you about habits that if you create the habits, success becomes somewhat of an inevitability?
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point that I want to make sure I hit on, because it's easy to look at someone like Andrew or a top leader. People hear my story of the money that I was blessed to be able to make in the big teams and the magazines and the books, and with John Maxwell on an advisory panel, an interview by Grant Cardone. They see that side, and that's great. But a lot of times they're like, I used to be, and those of you that are watching, you may as well go, man, like you said, man, they're so good at everything. I could never do what they do. And, they don't understand my situation and my circumstances. That's not the part of the story that gets me excited to share with people. So Andrew, people don't hear the first 7 years of my story, which I failed. And I was, I live up until a few months ago, I lived in the same little town my entire life. I just turned 49 years old a couple of weeks ago. So for 48 years, I lived in a really small town. I mean, we had 1,500 people in the actual town. And if you went out for many miles, farmlands and stuff like that, we have, I think, 10,000 people. And so here I was living in a small town, college dropout. We ended up on government assistance, because I failed. And at 25 years old, after 7 years of trying to make business work, especially the network marketing, profession, I ended up couldn't feed my family. So here I was, college dropout, living in a small town, bankrupt, government assistance, car repossessed, couldn't feed my kids, couldn't support my wife, couldn't keep a job. I went to the doctor for depression. And I was looking at all these people going, oh my gosh, they must live in big cities. I live in a small town. They must have a college education. I have a lack of education. They must be great public speakers. I'll pass out in front of 5 people if you put me in front of a room. They must come from money. We have no money. I mean, I had every excuse in the book. And it wasn't until I learned, I got around the right people, like you're talking about. And I learned that the habits the first one that really, because first we create our habits and our rituals, and then they create us. And I heard this best-selling author who has made a lot of money and helped a lot of people. He said, "Can you get a little bit better today than you were yesterday? Can you read 10 pages out of a good book?" And I was thinking, well, I still have a hard time reading 10 pages because my mind goes 50 million directions. I don't know if anybody else can relate watching this, but I joke and tell people I got ADD, ADHD, ADT. No, really. ADT is a security system here. I don't have that. But you may not know what that is.
Rob Sperry says ADHD is a dude has dreams, right? Like, I think that's one of the.
I like that. Yes. Rob is so awesome. Yeah. So what happened, I'm like, man, if I read 10 pages, I got to reread it, over and over, but I can do that. But that's about a book a month. So in 10 years, you've read 100 books. Most people don't read one a year. So just getting a little bit better, listening to a 15-minute podcast or a YouTube video a day. When I heard that, I got excited because I'm like, man, finally something I can do. I can get a little bit better. And so I started creating these habits and these rituals and understanding I didn't make what I want, I make what I am. And I didn't attract what I want, I attract what I am. And if I wanted to make more, I had to become more. And, when you look at the results, it can be frustrating. Like even now, like you and I talking about, the new coaching world and the coaching space. Yeah, we can even train on it. Hey, look, don't worry about the results. Focus on doing the right activities. And Andrew, I used to say this and it was wrong. If you're not having the success that you would like to have, you're not doing something enough or you're not doing something right. Well, that wasn't true. You could be doing a lot of the wrong things. So, but that's why it's important to have the right mentors and coaches and, plug into things like this because you can constantly refine what you're doing. But when you're failing forward and you're getting a little bit better. And so my goal was, hey, look, I want to fail forward. I want to fail fast. I want to fail often. And really, I don't fail. We don't fail unless we quit. We either win or we learn. So it's the habits of just getting a little bit better, every single day in every single area of our life that we possibly can. That was what started me on the journey of personal development, feeling like, okay, it's possible. If they can do it, I can do it. And then that has rolled over into every, aspect of my life. I've got a podcast I just recorded. I hadn't launched mine quite yet, but it was on how I've basically 10x'd my productivity. And I go over some things that I did. And it's interesting. I talk about one, thing that I've implemented is the Pomodoro method, where you work for 20 minutes and take a 5-minute break. And I've got this free app that I use. But what I did was I tied other little habits to that. So every 25 minutes when that bell goes off, that alarm, I'll do 15 push-ups. I'll do 10 squats. It reminds me to drink my water, and so I've got these little things. It's easier when you start to develop these habits if you tie it onto something else. So understanding we can't control the results, but we can control the activities that will get us to those results. And between the results and us that's the process. And I just continue to try to make that process better.
Yeah, I love it, isn't it? And it's about what can you control? Because, in business and in whatever business we choose, and again, whatever success means, success becomes a very subjective word at times because it's different for everyone else. But we can't always control everything in front of us. But if we just focus on controlling the controllables, what are the things I can do? And even just when you were talking, I love sport and I love talking about sporting analogies because I just think like there's like when you're on that arena, when you're on the court, when you're on the field, there's no excuses at that point. And, I love sport because, it is kind of still quite raw and real. And I remember watching, this was last year because there's no baseball at the moment, obviously with the strikes and all that. But I remember one of the commentators last year saying about how his, Pee Wee Little League coach had always said to him, if nothing else, sprint that first base 4 times a game. Like you don't have to be the most skilled person. You don't have to have the strongest hit, the best eye, the best arm, anything like that. But every time you come up to bat, you can sprint 90 yards to the first baseline. And I just remember like it was a throwaway line kind of stuff at the time, but I remember just hitting me like, it's what are the things we just say, you know what, I can just do this. And if nothing else in the world, I can do this. But then it becomes that compound effect, doesn't it? And we grow and we believe. And, we're talking about John Maxwell and growing with belief. And huge fan of John Maxwell as well. And it's funny actually because we've got a book club at I do a little book club with my coaching guys, and so I've got the 5 levels of leadership right here because we just went through this leadership event the other day, and we're talking about time I got to spend with John Maxwell, and leads us perfectly into sort of a bit of a leadership conversation because we want to talk about those things as well. What did you learn from John Maxwell being on his leadership advisory council? Because we had Tyler Dickerhoof on the podcast last year. I remember he was on that council as well, and someone I consider a close friend. What did you learn from surrounding yourself, as you say, that environment and surrounding yourself with an incredible mentor like John Maxwell?
Well, one of the things that I love about John Maxwell, they say you never want to meet your hero or your mentor because you'll always be disappointed. Like who they are on screen, on stage is not really who they are behind the scenes. Well, with John Maxwell, it was the complete opposite. I watched him treat the person, like literally, I watched him treat the person cleaning the restrooms exactly how he treated the people that were making millions a year, like Tyler, right? And like all of us. And so for me, I love the fact that, leadership is visual. And I would rather watch a leader than listen to one any day of the week. So being able to watch him in action and see his heart, and, Tyler will tell you, we went to his house, and that was awesome to hang out with him and Margaret and, hear about their grandkids and see the bowling alley in their house. And it was just an awesome experience. But one thing that I love a couple quotes, well, I love so many quotes that John Maxwell has, but he talked about a leader will tell but never teach until they practice what they preach. A leader can't talk about what they don't do no more than they can come back from somewhere they've never been. And so learning, studying leadership, not only with John Maxwell, but I was interviewed earlier today and I talked about the one that got John Maxwell started. I was very fortunate and blessed to be mentored for several years by him. I don't know, maybe it's close to a decade, but it was the late billionaire Paul J. Meyer. And so when I was sitting around, we were having dinner and I was sharing with John, I'm like, hey, there was a mentor of mine, that the late Paul J. Meyer had so many great things to say about you. And he stopped and he told everybody at the table the day that changed his life. And you may see, I forget what books he talks about this in, but you'll see it now or pay attention if you hadn't already. He goes, the day that changed my life was when someone said, John, what's your personal plan for growth? He didn't have one. And they presented him the ability to purchase a Paul J. Meyer Success Motivation Institute program. He didn't have the money. So he talked about how he sacrificed eating, meals, and vacations, and he saved and he invested in that program. And he's like, I still have it. He's like, I just took it on stage with me not too long ago. And so that was a cool experience because, being able to hang out with John Maxwell, see who he is in person, Paul J. Meyer. But I learned that, anything that we ever achieve and we ever win, it's in our head first. And, and that's, we will never get past our self-imposed limitations. It's not what goes on around us that's as important as what goes on within us.
I know John Maxwell, he talks about like the law of the lid, and the lid on our skill sets, on our personal development and our mindset. And that lid will be the lid on our business, the lid on what we're able to succeed. And, we were having this exact conversation the other day within a leadership event that you have to study and practice if you want to teach. How can you ever show the way if you don't know the way or you don't go the way yourself? And so, I love to talk about, study, practice, teach, study, practice, teach. And it is a cycle. Again, it's just a study, practice, teach, and then you raise to the next level. And then you just start studying that next level. And studying leadership for me, kind of 7 or 8 years ago, when I realized one of the gaps in our business and the gaps in my life was my lack of leadership or just my lack of ability to teach leadership. And, I sought out John Maxwell, and it's been amazing ever since. And I remember that event in Atlanta probably 2.5 years ago. Now the small room event, and I remember flying over there, being horribly jet lagged. It was such a whirlwind trip, but just to have 2 days in a room with John Maxwell and really, like you say, he was absolutely everything I ever thought he would be, and so much more, because he was just such a genuine person. I'd love to talk about the other thing that you talked about at the start as well, And it's funny, and this is not planned, but it's how the universe works, isn't it? So we're talking about this book club. So straight after this interview, we've got our book club from my mastermind clients, and this was the book that we just finished. So they're moving on to John Maxwell, but Building a Story Brand was the book they just finished. So I've got them sitting here on the desk, and we talk about your story. And I can't remember who, it might be a Tony Robbins quote, but it's, no one really cares about your story until you've made it. And then your story is everything. And it's sort of that same thing, isn't it? Where you had to go through that cauldron, you had to go through those challenges, and you had to figure things out. And some lessons, an empty stomach, an empty wallet, a broken heart. There are some life lessons that only you can learn from an empty stomach, an empty wallet, and an empty heart kind of stuff, because those things teach us a lot. And I know for me, I remember periods in my life, again, where you're skipping meals, where you're riding your bike because you can't afford to put fuel in the car, and you're telling everyone, I'm fasting, I'm exercising. No, was it intermittent fasting is easy when your income is intermittent? Yeah, it's I have intermittent income, so yes, I'm intermittently eating kind of stuff. But the reality was that period of time. And so I love to talk about, obviously, taking care of your money and respecting your money and caring about it and taking care of it because you've worked hard for it, because I know what it's like to not have any. And so it's not a matter of just making it for the sake of making it. It's making it to respect it, and so that we change our life and we never get ourselves in this position. So we talk about coming back to your story and the struggles you went through, but that struggle is exactly the thing that can help, that allows you to help other people, because people will know your story and they've heard your story and they know that they're going through that same struggle. So for someone who's in a struggle at the moment, but they can't quite see a way out, how are you helping them find the way out and helping them realize that this struggle is exactly what's going to make them stronger at the end of the day, exactly what's going to help them serve more people down the track?
Yeah, and first of all, that book, The Story Brand, it's funny because I was on the almost a 3-hour call this morning, or Zoom, redoing my website, and we're going through the whole story brand framework and the messaging. So that's such a powerful book. Yeah, back when I couldn't feed my family and I was depressed and I felt like I had no hope, if you would have told me at that time, hey, look, man, this is one of the best things that ever happened to you, this is awesome, I wouldn't have taken it well. But looking back, what I know now is, look, obstacles and challenges are your friend. They're the best things that ever happened to you if you look at them the right way, because it's not the easy times that make us grow. We don't grow in easy times. And obstacles lead to elevation. Without obstacles, there is no elevation. In network marketing, we always talk about you get paid based on the size of the problem that you can solve. And so I look back, and now I look at things a little bit differently. When I'm going through these challenges, I don't want to just go through them. You want to ask yourself, how can I grow through them? And Rick Warren, who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life, he goes, look, either you're in a storm, going out of a storm, or you're getting ready to go in a storm. And then John Maxwell talks that, look, there's no 2 easy days in a leader's life. You don't drift uphill anywhere. And so when you look at the challenges are refining you, and if you ask yourself, how can I grow through it? What can I learn from it? Because you got to ask yourself empowering questions if you want empowering answers. I used to say things like, I can't afford this. I can't afford it. Well, guess what? Your brain wants to be right. So it's going to go in your subconscious mind, throw into your conscious mind. You're right. Here are all the reasons you can't afford it. Instead of going, how can I afford it? Then your creative mind goes to work, and it starts to throw into your conscious mind how to solve that challenge or that struggle. And I can't recruit. I can't get customers. I can't build team. I can't attract the right people to me. You're right. So ask yourself empowering questions. But when you're going through those things, the key is when you're frustrated and burned out and unmotivated, it's a lack of clarity. Clarity gives you focus, and focus gives you energy. If you bring it right back down to clarity, it amazes me. We would all die for the ones that we love and care about, but yet people were ready to give up so quick when they join the business. And I'm like, look, we would take a bullet for the ones we love and care about. We would do anything. We love them so much. What does a no? What does getting rejected? I don't care how many people we have to go through. So when you really get crystal clear on your vision, and the billionaire Paul Meyer taught me this, The clearer the picture of your future, the more goal-directed your actions are on a daily basis. And Bob Proctor would say, look, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. What thou seest, thou beest. So create that clarity. That's going to give you focus, and focus is going to give you energy. And then focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Focus on what you can do, not what you can't do, where you're going, not where you've been, because what gets your attention gets you. And we move in the direction of our expectations. So that's why it's so important to have clarity, know why you're building the business, understand. And Andrew, I mean, you and I both, this is one of the reasons that I love leadership so much, is because people, they don't give people the right expectations, you know, when they join this profession. I had 2 franchises that cost $700,000.
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
And I mean, employees and overhead, and you don't own the business owns you. It was insane. But yet my wife and I were making more income from our network marketing business in 1 month than both those franchises combined in an entire year. That was a $700,000 investment. Getting into network marketing was less than the price of an iPhone. So when people get in, we lead a voluntary army, which means that most people are not going to do it. But when I had the mindset of, and there were some things, and Andrew, like for 13 years, I failed for 7. I had some really good success for 13. But then when I tweaked a few little things, which it all started in my mind, those little mindset tweaks, in 40 months, I was able to go out. And again, it's nothing I created on my own. 40 months did more than I would have if you would have combined the previous 40 years. But it's little 1% things, it's simple things, and everything starts in your head. So I don't know if that helps or makes sense, but
I'm going to have to listen to this again myself, because I love quotes, and you've just been dropping quote after quote after quote, like bomb after bomb. But probably 2 things I really want to hit and make sure everyone heard, because I think they're the really, really massive things. There's certainly, like we talk about that expectation, and it's something, you know, we have to make sure people's expectations are correct, and really just looking at apples to apples comparison sometimes. So my background is physiotherapy, and yes, you know, I was good and successful in my career 10, 15 years ago. I had to go to university for 4 years. Now, I had to go to university. I had to spend $100,000. It's not quite as expensive as a college for you guys, but you know, I still had to spend $100,000 and go to university. And then for us, it was 3 years before we were even allowed to touch someone. Wow. So we had to do 3 years of theory. I mean, we like practiced on each other, but you practiced on 18-year-old healthy friends, not, you know, like 40-year-old injured people kind of stuff. But, you know, it's sort of 3 years of theory and then a year of prac. So it's kind of a 4th year before you're even allowed to sort of work with a patient under supervision. So that's 4 years just to learn enough to be able to be put in the world and get a job. Then you kind of, again, it's, you know, it's 2 or 3 years of on the job training. And then when I moved into actually business ownership and owning my own practice and stuff, you're training people. And again, I had to learn the human body well enough to treat people. And then I had to learn it well enough to be able to teach new graduate physios how to teach people. That was a 10-year process at the end of the day, from 4 years at university, 3 years to get on my own feet, and then 3 years to get like my, you know, business feet and really establish myself there. That was a 10-year career. And so at that point, people are like, oh, you're so lucky, you're so fortunate. And it's like, well, it took me 10 years to get here, right? And so I know when we started, and I'm turning 40 in 2 months. I started just before I turned 30. I started the week before I turned 30. So we're coming up on 10 years. And I always remember just saying, like, you've got to give this 10 years. You've got to have the correct expectations. So I don't even feel like I've finished my apprenticeship yet. I still think there's a couple of months left on my apprenticeship, really, because I know what it took me 10 years in the real world to actually achieve something. And so, like, how can we look at this business model and have totally out there expectations? It's an incredible business model, but we've still got to go through an apprenticeship. We've still got to learn. And as you said, it took you years of failure, years of growth, and then years of incredible success. And we come back to that sort of process of people aren't going to care about your story until you've made it. Then they're really going to want to know your story, right? But we have to sort of do a lot of that work in the dark first. We're going to do a lot of that work just sort of chipping away. Now, unfortunately, in this process, I've forgotten the second thing. So because I got so into that first
No, that was
topic.
great. That was awesome. I
Yeah.
love it.
But yeah, like how do you help someone set that correct expectation? How do you help make sure someone actually knows, like, you know what, I'm committing to this and I'm committing for $700 instead of $700,000. But then also I've got to show up as if I have committed $700,000. If I show up with the mindset that I have committed $750,000, I know that because of the amount of money I spent to get a physio degree and then start a practice, I showed up whether I wanted to or not.
Yeah.
I showed up when I was tired. I showed up when I hadn't had 8 hours sleep. I showed up when I was feeling a bit flat. But sometimes we can, oh, well, I only did, I bought this business for $500, so maybe I don't have to show up every day. How do we set those correct expectations?
Well, I mean, I think it's just, continuing to have the same message is very important. So you create a culture in your organization that you're not over promoting and under delivering, because if I'm sure you probably heard, Larry Thompson that made, $80 million in network marketing. They call it the Thompson rule. And, 80% of the people that join network marketing are just to make an extra $300 to $500 a month. And then 15%, $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And then less than 5%, the big money. Now, it's not that they stay there. They start making a few hundred. And it's like if you're driving at night in the dark, you can see to a certain point. And then when you get there, you can see a little bit further. So when they get to 500 a month, they can see 1,000. They get to 1,000, they can see 2. And when you got to love them where they are. But when I would bring someone into the business, I would help set the right expectations. We would make sure we were teaching that on our team trainings. And, hey, look, this is a business. And share with me what's most important to you in your life right now. And we started asking it a little bit differently than what's your why, because a lot of times that's inside language, not outside. And if somebody hadn't been in this profession before, they don't really understand what's your why. So I go, hey, what's most important to you in your life right now? And let them tell you, well, man, it's my family and I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And one lady told me my kid's getting bullied and it rips my heart out. We want to move to a better area, but we can't afford it. And, I want to be able to give more to my church. And so you have to attach emotions to the money. And then I go, hey, well, Andrew, let me ask you this. When things get tough, what do I have permission to say to you? What do you want me to remind you of or say to you to help encourage you to stay strong enough long enough? And then you give me permission to hold you accountable and say those things. And then I'm real with you. Hey, look, and we would incorporate this into our trainings. And we would continue to preach the same message because, spaced repetition, over 50% of what we retain is after the 5th time we hear it, see it, or read it. And matter of fact, I think that may have been the YouTube video I released today or last week, or we're getting ready to release it. No, it's out there, but I talk about the billionaire taught me that. So you continue to say the same thing over and over and over again. And they remember it going, hey, look, it's an emotional roller coaster. You're going to get in, Andrew. Today, you're excited. You're in the no sleep zone. You're like a chihuahua jacked up on Red Bull. And, but then next thing you know, in a few days, you're going to go in the self-doubt zone. It may be tomorrow. Where you're like, man, maybe I should just work until I die. And maybe I should give up on all my dreams. And maybe I should go back to college and get another degree and go in more debt and all of those things. But then someone calls you back and they go, you've never seen anybody do what I'm going to do. Right? So we've got, let's see, Vicky. Vicky, you've never seen anybody do what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you rich. You have no idea who I know. And you're back up in the no sleep zone. But then all of a sudden, a few days later, a week or two later, I go in the witness protection program and Vicky's back down. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. That is life. That is business. This is no different. So it's going to be an emotional roller coaster. But let me tell you something, it's worth it. So it's helping set those right expectations and create the culture and the rhythm of your organization. And then it's loving people where they are. Don't get mad at your money. You love them and encourage them. And then if you put the right things in place and they're growing and they're, you have recognition and you're doing all the things, you're doing all the things that you're doing right now, they'll want to be a part of it, even if the money's not there yet, because it's so positive and it's empowering and they're growing and it's encouraging and it's building them as a whole person. So, we just continue to preach the same message over and over and over again. And that really made it, we implemented it into our onboarding systems, all of our trainings. And then, there's different devils at every level too. The only difference, I know people would come to me, and I'm sure they do you as well, Andrew, back when I was building, and they'll go, Darin, you just don't understand. I'm so busy. And I'm like, I understand. We have 5 kids. We have multiple franchises. We have a team of several 100,000 people. I understand. Well, I've got all these people on my team and nobody's doing anything. And I would go, well, I'm making more money than you. It's just I have more people doing nothing than you do. So if you want more people doing something, go get some more people doing nothing. Yeah, but you don't understand. Like, I went and did this event and only 2 people showed up. Oh, yeah, I drove 3.5 hours one way and the person doing the event didn't show up. And I didn't have the money to have a hotel. And I'm driving back in the middle of the night. I'm pulling over on the side of the road doing jumping jacks to stay awake. And, so it's all those challenges that you're going through. You're writing chapters in your book to be able to share with other people, inspire and motivate people that if you can do it, they can do it. But yeah, it's just setting up the right expectations. It's sharing stories. It's connecting them to the life support of the business. When you're connecting them, because the longer you wait, the colder they get. And so I want to connect them to the life support. So your Facebook groups, your team trainings, any company things that you want to plug them into, I want to keep them as close to the fire as I possibly can and just baby step them along.
Well, people are like mobile phones, aren't they? We need to plug them in kind of pretty much every day. Like otherwise they stop working. But I was just laughing because I do remember flying to Melbourne. So from Brisbane to Melbourne, which is about a 3-hour plane flight for an event that these people were running. And I kind of got to the airport and they were supposed to pick me up and no one was there. And I texted them and said, it was a beautiful sunny day. So we canceled the event and went to the beach. Sorry, we forgot to tell you. And I was like, interesting. Talk about frustrations. But I think you do, like, we've almost come sort of full circle and put a bow on it. Things, well, there's one thing I really want to hit, but you put on a bow on it so well in that at the end of the day, you did the same thing over and over again. You did the same thing over and over again, which is a habit. And you created the habits until they became chains that were so strong that they couldn't be broken. And it is that sort of mindset that we create them first. And then when they become chains of habit that are so strong they can't be broken, the culture was the same. Like no matter when someone came in, they got that same culture, they got that same support, they got those same systems, and everything was working and everything exploded because of the habits that you'd created. The one thing I want to hit, because it's really like what I love to talk about and really in my wheelhouse, is this. Money is an objective thing. Money is a piece of paper with someone's face on it. It's a number on a bank screen, all that kind of stuff. But it's the visceral emotional attachment to it that's really the key. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's beliefs about money and mindsets about money that people can hold on to. And it's like, well, it's about matching your visceral subjective mindset with the objective measurement of what will it cost to do this. And we love to talk about freedom. So whenever I'm working with someone, whenever we're going through a coaching process, the very first thing they have to do is explain to me their ultimate day. Like, what would the perfect day be to you? Like, what's your freedom plan, essentially? Like, if you could just wake up, how would you wake up? Where would you wake up? What would you see when you open the window? What would you do each day, etc.? What is that perfect freedom day? Okay, now how much will that cost? So let's actually match your subjective visceral dreams and the emotions with an objective measurement. And then, okay, now we can create a plan to get there. But until we marry the two, and again, it's not about money won't solve problems, money this, money that. It's like, no, this is just an objective valuing measurement of how we can help you reach your emotional goals. So I love what you said about that. It's like, well, if it's the person who needs to be able to put their kid in a different school because they're getting bullied, money can solve that problem. Like, money may not be able to solve every problem in the world, but it can certainly solve that problem. When you are hungry and unhappy and I'm unable to put food on the table, having a plan to get more money helped that problem. And you were able to achieve that by marrying your drive and your vision with an objective measurement. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that, but I wanted to sort of add that in because it's what I love talking about the most, obviously, in these podcasts, on my videos, in my book.
Yeah, I would love to. And I have to make sure I don't go too deep on this. But so one of the things that this billionaire, Paul Meyer, that I talked about, he had 40 companies in 60 countries that did billions of dollars in revenue. He paid for 1,000 kids a year to go to college. He gave away hundreds of millions to charity while he was living and had it set up where it would continue to give. He had one goal-setting program that sold $600 million, and I could go on and on. But I remember him telling us to do a dream board. And I remember going, that's kind of silly. Are we in kindergarten? Like, why would I do a dream board? Cut and paste and on and on and on. And he didn't understand the science, because I don't think they had the science out at that time. But now they found that your brain does not know the difference in reality and what you tell it. So you can visualize and experience that perfect day or that vacation or that dream home or that rank advancement, whatever it may be. Your brain doesn't know the difference in reality and what you tell it. So your body and your brain will produce the same chemicals and endorphins as if the experience actually happened. So you can experience and experience before you ever experience it. And then when we move in the direction of our expectations and we move in the direction of things that we're comfortable with, and he would say, look, run out and visit your dreams in the future and then come back and find out the stepping stones it's going to take to get you there, which is exactly what you're talking about. So what thou seest, thou beest. So the clearer the picture of your future, the more goal directed your actions are on a daily basis. That vivid clarity, because that clarity gives you focus, that focus gives you energy. And we magnetize the condition that we seek. Was another thing that we used to say, look, thoughts are things, they're a magnet. So now I understand, but it's taking me 49 years of my life to understand the power to think about what you're thinking about, capture those thoughts, be very careful what you speak, because what you think about, you speak about, you bring about. Thoughts are things, words and thoughts, they're magnets. And the way, because if I have a superpower, I try to make things really simple, because that's the way that I think. My thoughts and my words, they're a paintbrush. I'm painting tomorrow, today. So if you look around, you set yourself up for success, because it's going to be challenging. There's going to be some days that just suck and you don't feel like doing anything. Matter of fact, 99% of the time, I don't feel like doing anything. But what does feeling like it have to do with it? So if I showed you around my office right now, I've got screensavers on my iPad, my phone, on the computer. Recent studies that I saw, we look at our phone on average 344 times a day. And your subconscious mind is always recording. So when I look at my phone, I look at my iPad, I look at my laptop, I'm always seeing my family and dreams and goals and all of these things. I've got affirmations on a whiteboard right here beside me. I've got goals. I've got dreams. I bought a TV. My wife's like, why do you need a 65-inch TV in your office? Because I wanted YouTube videos playing of places that I want to travel, things that I want to do. So right now there's a beach right over here and beautiful palm trees. That's playing. If I turned you over here to my desk, you're going to see pictures of my family. You're going to see when we were in Hawaii, I took this beautiful water bottle and went out to the beach. My wife's like, what the heck are you doing? I'm taking some of the sand home with us. So I've got some of the sand out in Turtle Bay, North Shore, Hawaii, right here. So I've got all of these things where I've got playlists, music playlists that are uplifting, next level, never quit. So what happens when I get in this office, right, or in my environment, no matter how I feel, it doesn't matter, right? I am going to make sure I don't want my kids, some rock star, some TV, some athlete, some movie star. I don't want them being their hero. I want to be their hero. I want to show them how much I care. I want to help them have the best life. I want to help the most people, impact people. So anyway, I could go on and on and on. I could do a 2-hour, training hour of you have to see it in your head before you hold it in your hand, like Bob Proctor says. If you get nothing else, because it's not the how-tos, it's how you do the how-tos. And if you don't have this clear, then anything's going to knock you out of the game. It's not the money. Like you said, you have to put an emotional attachment to the money. And it's like Rocky in the movie when he was fighting Tommy Morrison, and he got knocked down and Tommy's walking away. And then Rocky goes, man, where are you going? I didn't hear a bell. One more round. Well, that's what I tell myself every single day. One more round, one more round. So be careful what you read. Be careful what you listen to. Seek out the right associations, just like this podcast, because they work harder on you than you work on them. And when the billionaire said, Darin, you will never get past your self-imposed limitations. And Andrew, one of the biggest aha moments I've ever had in my life has been in the last couple of years going, man, every time I go to a different level, it's because I finally believe that I can. And the reason that I believe that I can is because what I read, what I listen to, who I associate with, who I disassociate it with, who I limit my associations with. There's people in the last 6 months, I had to disassociate with. And the way I look at it, when that rocket takes off, it's got those little, what do you call those things on the side of a rocket that they drop off?
Little escape pods.
Yeah. So they fall
Yeah.
off. So the rocket can continue to climb. There's people in our life, you've got to disengage, limit your associations. You've got to seek out. There were times when I was broke, I didn't have money. I would hire somebody for $15,000 for a VIP day, $12,000 for 4 hours. And I hired one of the top 20 YouTubers in Forbes. I hired one of the top social media people out of Forbes. And people are like, you're an idiot. Why would you spend that kind of money? I spent 6 figures when I really didn't have it in a year in coaching, because I'm like, wow, I want success compression. I don't want to spend years trying to figure out what they do when I can hire them, learn from them, shave years off my learning curve, and get to where I want to be a lot sooner than later. So there's a few little tips in there. Hopefully, I didn't mean to get all like hyped up on you, but hey, I get excited. And I know some of you right now, you're watching this. Tonight's going to be the night, this is the night I draw a line in the sand. I've had it. I don't know what, but something tonight has triggered me. And you're going to get off of here and you're going to start getting clarity on what you really want. And then you're going to make a commitment. And commitment is doing the thing you said you would do long after the feeling in which you said it in has passed. There's a difference. There's people that are involved, but they're not committed. And when you make that mindset shift and you go, I've had it, I will until. And most of the people that you love and care about, they're not going to see it. They're not going to see it like you. You can't expect them to. God gave you the vision, not them. So your attitude has to be, you know what? I love them. I care about them, but you have to go with or without them.
I love it, mate. You've again, there's 5 or 6 points that we could hit there, and this podcast could turn into a 3-hour lecture series, couldn't it? But as you say, and I did a live on this just the other day. If it doesn't help you bring an income, build your business, or it doesn't bring you happiness, you probably need to look at, do you need it in your life? You might just need to cut some things out of your life. If they're not helping you build your business, or they're not helping you build your happiness, do they need to be in your life? And thanks for what you said as well, because it reminded me of that second thing that I forgot about before, but the importance of our words. And it is so important. Like you were saying, if you just say, I can't do that. And again, I won't hit it too hard because I did a podcast just 3 or 4 episodes ago. It's like, just at least say yet, at least put yet at the end of the sentence, because you start that U-turn. You know what? I can't do this yet,
yes,
but I'm going to figure it out. And you just start U-turning your brain. Like, I don't know how to do that yet, but I can compress my learning. I can find someone who's already done it. The shortest pathway to success, find someone who's done it and ask them how they did it, and then go and do that. Like, it's a 3-step process.
Yes.
Talk about vision boards. So people, I just put this painting up behind me recently. We just sort of rejigged the office a little bit. So my wife painted this picture 4 or 5 years ago, and it was this beautiful big tree and these rolling hills with the pets running around. She did this art class and sort of came home with this, right? But it was part of a vision of this house that we would have. And then, of course, now we've got this beautiful house and we look over those, rolling green hills and these huge trees out in the yard. And there's guys actually out there today just sort of doing the annual cleanup of everything as we kind of head into winter in Australia. But so important. And the last thing that's really, really important, it's really important to me, I want to bring it up, is that, why do you get up each day and do this? You've been successful. And people say this, like, you've got money, you've got success, you've got investments. Why do you still get out of bed? And it's because I want my children to look at me and see determination, see grit, see goal setting, see commitment, see being impeccable with my word, being authentic and doing what I said I would do. I want my kids to see that every day. And how else do they get that unless I model it for them? Otherwise, they're going to go to YouTube. They're going to go to all these other places. But if I can model, you know what, guys, dream bigger, have that vision, and then get up every day and get to work, like, there's a good chance that they'll take on those character traits. So it's really important to me as well. I just want to finish up with talking leadership. Darin did talk about it a couple of times. He's recorded some podcast episodes. I think it's in the process of launching. So depending on when you are watching this or when you're listening to this, it may not be ready right today, but it is in the process, the Darin Kidd Leadership Podcast. So keep your eyes and ears out for that. That is Darin, Darin, Kidd, Kidd, Darin Kidd Leadership Podcast as well. And I know your website is under a bit of reconstruction, and we talk about, like, there's a great section in there. We meet me and we talk about, I will until, and you really hear more about Darin's story. But if you go to darinkidd.com /3 laws, the number 3 and then laws. There's some extra information in there for you as well, because you've listened to the podcast, because you've stayed to the end and really committed. There's some extra free resources in there directly from Darin that you can download and learn from. The rest of the website, it may be a little bit funky while it's being reconstructed, but that link is there and ready. So, mate, I appreciate your time. I really want to thank you for being on. It's sort of right at that 45-minute mark. I know we could continue talking, but I do want to be, respectful of your time today. Anything else before we go? Anything else you want to drop?
No, Andrew, I just want to say it was an honor being invited, and I love spending time with all of you, and I can't wait. Keep me posted. Let's stay connected and let me know how you're doing, because it's easy to get excited, while we're on a podcast like this, but afterwards is what we do in the dark is what we get recognized for in the light. And again, commitment, when that feeling goes away, is continuing to push no matter how we feel and getting a little bit better every single day and a little bit of progress. And so I'm cheering for each and every one of you. So thank you so much, Andrew. I know that everyone definitely appreciates all the value that you bring, and so you're definitely an inspiration. So thank you so much.
I love it, Matt. I love that line of commitment. A good mentor of mine, Michael Klaus, says the same thing, isn't it? It's doing what you said you would do long after the excitement of the event, the excitement of the podcast, and we say things to ourselves. And then the next day, we're kind of like, whoopsie, I shouldn't have said that. I'm going to go off and do something else. So Have that commitment, guys. Do that. Appreciate you all being on. And until the next episode, we'll catch you again soon.